I knew my marriage was dying long before I found the proof. You feel it in your bones first. That shift in the air, the way conversations start feeling like negotiations between strangers. But admitting it meant facing a reality I wasn't ready for. So I buried the knowledge deep and kept pretending everything was normal. The unemployment hit me harder than I expected. 3 months after the layoffs at Morrison Tech, I was still sending out resumes and getting form rejection letters. Erin was supportive at first, telling me we'd figure it out together, that her salary at the marketing firm could carry us for a while. But support has a shelf life, and I watched it expire in slow motion. The changes started small. Erin stopped asking about my job interviews. When I'd update her on potential leads, she'd nod absently while scrolling through her phone. The eye contact disappeared first. During dinner conversations, she'd look past me or down at her plate. It was subtle enough that I could convince myself I was imagining it. Then came the phone. Erin had always been casual about her phone, leaving it on counters, asking me to check messages when she was driving. Suddenly, it was glued to her hand, screen down on surfaces, buzzing constantly with what she called work emergencies. When I asked about the increased hours, she'd get defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she'd say. "I'm carrying the financial load right now." The guilt was effective. I was the unemployed husband questioning his working wife's dedication, so I stopped asking. But I kept noticing. Erin started showering immediately when she came home from work. Not after dinner, not before bed, immediately. She'd walk through the door, barely acknowledge me, and head straight for the bathroom. When she emerged, she'd be different, more relaxed, like she'd washed away whatever had been bothering her. Her grooming habits changed, too. New perfume appeared on the dresser. She started getting her nails done every week instead of every month. The expensive salon visits that we couldn't really afford became non-negotiable expenses. When I mentioned the cost, she reminded me that she needed to look professional for work. "Besides," she said, "I'm the only one working right now." The knife twisted a little deeper each time. Our physical intimacy evaporated. When I'd reach for her in bed, she'd claim exhaustion. When I'd suggest weekend activities, she was too busy catching up on work projects. The woman who used to greet me with kisses started offering distracted waves from across the room. I began cataloging these changes like evidence in a case I didn't want to build. Late nights became more frequent. Working dinners with colleagues became weekly occurrences. Her explanations grew more elaborate and defensive when I'd ask simple questions about her day. The paranoia felt toxic, eating at me from the inside. I'd lie awake while she slept, analyzing every interaction, every excuse, every new behavior. Part of me hoped I was losing my mind, that unemployment depression was making me paranoid and suspicious of a wife who was simply stressed about supporting us. But the other part of me, the part that paid attention to details, knew better. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late September. Erin bounced through the door with an energy I hadn't seen in months. "I'm going on a girls' weekend," she announced, not asked. "Sarah's been planning this spa trip to the mountains for weeks. We leave Friday after work." Sarah, Erin's college friend who lived in Denver and rarely visited. Sarah, whom Erin hadn't mentioned in months. "That sounds expensive," I said carefully. "I need this, Mark. I've been under so much stress." Her tone carried a warning. Don't be the unemployed husband who denies his working wife a weekend away. But something in her eyes, the way she couldn't quite meet my gaze, made my stomach clench with recognition. This wasn't excitement about a spa weekend with girlfriends. This was anticipation of something else entirely. That night, as Erin packed with nervous energy, chattering about massages and hiking trails, I made a decision that would change everything. I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. Because living in limbo, questioning my sanity while watching my marriage die in real time, was destroying me already. The GPS tracker cost $47 on Amazon. Prime shipping, guaranteed delivery by Thursday afternoon, 12 hours before Erin's departure. As I clicked purchase, my hands trembled with the weight of crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Installing tracking software on my laptop felt like learning a foreign language. The instructions were simple enough. create account, sync device, monitor location, but every click felt like a betrayal. Not of Aaron, but of the man I used to be, the man who trusted blindly, who gave benefit of doubt, who believed in the sanctity of marriage vows. That man was naive. This man, the one downloading surveillance apps at 2 in the morning, was pragmatic. I practiced the installation on my own car first, familiarizing myself with the magnetic mount, testing the battery life, learning how to access the tracking interface. The device was smaller than I expected, about the size of a matchbook, designed to hide under wheel wells or bumpers. Technology had made betrayal easy to commit and equally easy to discover. Wednesday night, I barely slept. Erin lay beside me, breathing peacefully, completely unaware that her husband was planning to surveil her weekend activities. Part of me wanted to wake her, confront her with my suspicions, demand honesty, but confrontation without proof would give her the opportunity to craft better lies, to cover her tracks more carefully. If I was wrong, I'd apologize and seek counseling for my paranoid thoughts. If I was right, I needed evidence. Friday morning arrived with cruel normalcy. Erin hummed while making coffee, kissed my forehead goodbye, and promised to call when she reached the spa. Her overnight bag sat by the door, too large for a 2-day trip, packed with care that suggested more than casual weekend comfort. "Have fun," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I will. I really need this break." After her Acura disappeared down our street, I retrieved the tracker from my toolbox and walked outside. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was gardening, and I waved casually while heading toward the garage. Normal husband behavior. Nothing suspicious. Under Erin's wheel well, the magnetic mount clicked into place with satisfying finality. The LED light blinked green. Signal acquired, battery full, tracking active. My marriage was now under electronic surveillance. The waiting began. I tried to maintain normal routines. Breakfast, job search emails, phone calls about potential interviews. But my attention stayed fixed on the laptop screen showing Erin's location. She headed east on I-70 toward the mountains, exactly as expected for a spa weekend in Breckenridge. Then she stopped. The red dot representing my wife's location remained stationary for over an hour at a highway exit 30 miles from any spa resort. I zoomed in on the satellite view. A truck stop with a McDonald's and gas station. Bathroom break, I told myself. Grabbing lunch before the final push to the mountains. But the dot didn't move toward Breckenridge. It moved south, toward Colorado Springs. My stomach dropped as I watched her location shift to an upscale hotel district I recognized. The same area where Erin's company held annual retreats. The Broadmoor Resort Complex, where she'd attended conferences before, where she'd mentioned colleagues stayed during business trips. The red dot stopped at the Cheyenne Mountain Resort. I sat staring at the screen, watching my marriage officially die. This wasn't a girls' weekend. This was a romantic getaway with someone else. Someone who warranted the expensive hotel, the careful grooming, the nervous excitement I'd witnessed. The drive to Colorado Springs took me 90 minutes. 90 minutes to transform from suspicious husband to confirmed cuckold. I parked across the street from the hotel entrance and waited. Engine running, air conditioning battling the afternoon heat. At 4:30 p.m., I saw them. Erin emerged from the hotel lobby hand in hand with Ben Morrison. The same Ben Morrison from her office. The same Ben she'd complained about for months, calling him arrogant and overbearing. The same married Ben, with 2 young children whose photos she'd shown me from company picnics. They weren't acting like colleagues. Ben's arm wrapped around Erin's waist with familiar intimacy. She leaned into him naturally, comfortably, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. When he kissed her temple, she smiled with genuine happiness, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I grabbed my phone and started recording. They walked to a red BMW convertible, Ben's car, judging by how easily he found the keys. Erin climbed into the passenger seat with practiced grace, immediately reaching over to touch his arm as he started the engine. Their conversation looked animated, flirtatious, happy. I followed them to dinner at an expensive steakhouse, maintaining careful distance. Through the restaurant windows, I watched them share appetizers, lean across the table for intimate conversations, laugh at private jokes. Erin looked radiant in ways I hadn't seen in our own home for months. This wasn't a new affair. This was an established relationship, complete with comfortable routines and emotional intimacy. They had history, inside jokes, a rhythm that spoke of regular encounters. My wife was in love with another man. I drove home in numb silence, my phone full of photos and videos that would soon destroy multiple lives. The evidence was irrefutable, the betrayal complete. But instead of rage or heartbreak, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. The uncertainty was over. The paranoia was validated. The man I'd become through months of suspicion and doubt could finally stop questioning his sanity and start planning his response. Erin had made her choice. Now I would make mine. Monday morning, while Erin slept off her spa weekend, I sat in attorney Margaret Fleming's office reviewing my options. Fleming specialized in divorce law with a reputation for protecting men's assets in contested proceedings. Her initial consultation fee was $300 I couldn't afford, but considering what I stood to lose without proper representation, it was the best investment I'd ever made. Adultery affects divorce proceedings in Colorado, Fleming explained, reviewing the photos on my phone. We're not a pure, no-fault state. Infidelity impacts asset division, especially when marital funds were used to support the affair. She outlined the process with clinical precision. Document everything, protect assets before filing, gather evidence of financial misconduct, hotel bills, restaurant charges, gifts purchased with joint accounts. Create an irrefutable case that would minimize my financial exposure and maximize Erin's consequences. Do you know if she's spent marital money on this relationship? Fleming asked. I thought about the expensive salon visits, the new clothes, the elaborate excuses for working dinners. Probably. How do I prove it? Bank records, credit card statements, receipts. You have legal access to joint accounts. Use it. That afternoon, while Erin worked late, or claimed to, I began my investigation in earnest. Our home computer contained 2 years of financial records. Credit card statements told the story of an affair funded by joint assets. Charges at expensive restaurants on evenings when Erin claimed to be working late, hotel bills that didn't correspond with business travel, purchases at Victoria's Secret that never appeared in our bedroom. The paper trail was damning. I opened a new checking account at a different bank, slowly transferring money from our joint savings. Not stealing. Protecting assets that would otherwise disappear in divorce proceedings. Fleming had been clear. In contested divorces, the spouse who moved first usually fared better. Changing passwords came next. Email accounts, social media profiles, financial platforms, anything Erin might use to monitor my activities or access joint resources. I documented every change with timestamps and screenshots, creating a record of asset protection rather than malicious interference. The most difficult part was maintaining normalcy at home. Erin returned from her girls' weekend glowing and relaxed, full of stories about spa treatments and hiking trails. She showed me photos on her phone, carefully curated images that supported her cover story. No Ben in sight, though I noticed her manicured nails and professional makeup suggesting preparation for photographs. Making sexy pictures for photograph? How was Sarah? I asked over dinner. Great. Stressed about work, but that's nothing new. The spa package was worth every penny. The lies came so easily. Erin looked me in the eye while describing fictional massages and imaginary conversations with a friend she'd never visited. Her performance was flawless, practiced, suggesting months of deception I'd been too trusting to notice. I spent evenings researching Ben Morrison while Erin watched television, oblivious to my activities. LinkedIn provided his professional background. Marketing director, married to Jennifer Morrison for 8 years, father to Emma and Jake Morrison, ages 6 and 4. His company profile showed recent promotions and salary increases, explaining his ability to afford expensive hotels and dinners. Facebook revealed more personal details. Family vacation photos, children's birthday parties, anniversary celebrations with Jennifer. Ben presented himself as a devoted family man, posting frequently about work-life balance and the importance of commitment. The hypocrisy was staggering. Jennifer Morrison's social media painted the picture of a stay-at-home mother devoted to her children. Her recent posts showed increasing signs of stress, complaints about Ben working late, concerns about their changed family dynamic, confusion about his decreased presence at home events. She was living the same reality I'd experienced, questioning her instincts, while her husband destroyed their marriage. By Thursday, I'd assembled a comprehensive dossier. Financial evidence of the affair, documentation of workplace policy violations, and proof of Ben's deception to his own family. The affair wasn't just personal betrayal. It was professional misconduct between supervisor and subordinate, creating liability for their employer. Fleming reviewed my evidence with approval. "This is thorough work. We can file whenever you're ready." But filing for divorce was only the beginning. Aaron and Ben had made choices that would hurt innocent people. Jennifer Morrison, their children, colleagues who trusted them professionally. Justice required consequences beyond legal proceedings. I researched their company's human resources policies. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates required disclosure and approval. Failure to report created grounds for termination, particularly when company resources were used to facilitate the relationship. Aaron's business trips, Ben's expense accounts, their use of company time and equipment to coordinate personal activities, all policy violations with career-ending implications. Jennifer Morrison deserved to know the truth about her marriage. Their children deserved a father who wasn't living a double life. Their employer deserved to know that senior staff were violating company policies and potentially creating legal liability. My transformation was complete. The trusting husband who'd given Aaron benefit of doubt no longer existed. In his place stood a man who understood that consequences required careful planning, that justice demanded strategic thinking, and that protecting innocent people sometimes meant destroying guilty ones. Aaron had chosen this path. Ben had enabled it. Now they would discover that choices have costs, and some prices are higher than they ever imagined. Aaron knew something was wrong the moment she tried to unlock the front door Friday evening and found the locks changed. I watched from the living room window as she fumbled with her keys, confusion transforming to frustration to growing alarm. When she finally rang the doorbell, in her own home, the transformation was complete. I opened the door without emotion. No anger, no accusations, just clinical calm that immediately put her on edge. "Where are the locks changed?" she demanded, pushing past me into the house. "Have a seat, Aaron. We need to talk." Something in my tone stopped her mid-stride. She turned, studying my face with the careful attention of someone who just realized the game had changed. "I know about Ben Morrison." The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Denial was impossible when confronted with that level of certainty. I gestured toward the coffee table where I'd arranged the evidence like a prosecutor presenting a case. Photos from the hotel, bank statements highlighting suspicious charges, screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from our phone bills, the GPS tracker sitting like an accusation in the center. "Sit down," I repeated. She collapsed into the chair across from me, staring at the evidence of her betrayal spread out like a roadmap of deception. Her hands trembled as she reached for one of the photos. Her and Ben walking hand in hand outside the Cheyenne Mountain Resort. "Mark, I can explain," she stammered. "No explanations, just listen," I roared. I handed her a manila folder. Inside were divorce papers, filed that morning with the county courthouse. Petition for dissolution of marriage, citing adultery, with documented evidence of financial misconduct and marital asset misuse. Our joint accounts are frozen, pending court review. The house is in my name, purchased before our marriage. You have 30 days to remove your personal belongings. Aaron's professional composure cracked. "You can't just throw me out. This is my home too." "Actually, I can. Check the property deed," I replied. She rifled through the papers with increasing desperation, looking for some angle, some technicality that might save her. But Fleming had been thorough. Every document was properly filed, every asset properly protected, every legal requirement satisfied. "What about my job?" Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. "Interesting question." I handed her another folder. Ben's wife received copies of these photos this morning. Your Human Resources Department received documentation of policy violations this afternoon. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates require disclosure. Using company resources to facilitate personal relationships violates your employment contract. The second blow landed harder than the first. Erin's face went ashen as she realized the scope of consequences I'd engineered. Not just personal destruction, but professional annihilation. You've destroyed my career. You destroyed your career. I just documented it, I replied. Her phone started buzzing. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, piling up as news of her exposure spread through professional and personal networks. Ben trying to coordinate damage control. Jennifer Morrison demanding explanations. HR scheduling emergency meetings. How long have you known? She asked. Long enough to protect myself, I replied. Erin cycled through the stages of someone whose world had just imploded. Denial gave way to bargaining as she tried to negotiate some settlement that might salvage her situation. When that failed, anger emerged. You're destroying innocent people, she accused. Ben's children don't deserve this. Ben's children deserved a father who honored his marriage vows. Jennifer deserved a husband who told the truth. Neither of them got what they deserved because you and Ben made selfish choices. We fell in love, she whispered. You had an affair. Love doesn't require deception, I replied. The conversation continued for another hour, but the outcome never changed. Erin's attempts at manipulation fell flat against documented evidence. Her promises of changed behavior meant nothing when trust had been systematically destroyed. Her threats of legal action seemed hollow when facing superior preparation. By evening, the broader consequences were manifesting. Ben called 17 times before Erin finally answered, their conversation a whispered argument about blame and damage control. Jennifer Morrison's attorney had already contacted Fleming about supporting evidence in her own divorce proceedings. The human resources investigation was expanding to include other employees who might have known about policy violations. Erin packed 2 suitcases that night, moving like someone in shock. The confident woman who'd lied so easily about spa weekends and girls' trips had been replaced by someone facing the complete destruction of life as she knew it. I never meant to hurt you, she said as she loaded her car. Yes, you did. You hurt me every day for months. You just never meant to get caught. She drove away without looking back, leaving behind a marriage that had died long before I'd found the proof. The house felt different. Not empty, but clean. Like an infection had been removed and healing could finally begin. My phone buzzed with a text from Fleming. HR confirmed both terminated effective immediately. Ben's wife filed for divorce this afternoon. Justice served. Justice. The word felt appropriate but incomplete. Consequences had been delivered, innocent people had been informed, and guilty parties were facing appropriate penalties. But justice was cold comfort when sitting alone in a house that used to feel like home. Still, as I looked at the evidence scattered across the coffee table, proof of months of systematic deception, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Control. Not over other people's choices, but over my own response to them. Erin and Ben had chosen betrayal. I had chosen consequence. The difference between victim and victor was often just a matter of preparation and resolve. 6 months after the locks were changed, I found myself sitting in the same coffee shop where Erin used to meet Ben for their business lunches. The irony wasn't lost on me. Claiming territory they'd once thought was secret, drinking coffee in a space that had facilitated their deception. The aftermath had unfolded exactly as Fleming predicted. Erin's attempts to contest the divorce had failed spectacularly when faced with documented evidence of adultery and financial misconduct. She'd moved back to Phoenix with her sister, unemployed and effectively blacklisted in Colorado marketing circles. Professional networks are small, and news of her termination had spread quickly. Ben's situation was equally devastating. Jennifer had been thorough in her own divorce proceedings, using my evidence to secure primary custody of Emma and Jake. His relationship with his children was limited to supervised visits, his reputation in professional circles destroyed by the HR investigation. The man, who'd posted constantly about work-life balance and commitment, had become a cautionary tale about the cost of hypocrisy. Their affair had survived exactly 3 weeks after exposure, before imploding under the weight of consequences neither had anticipated. Turns out that relationships built on deception and fantasy don't translate well to reality when both parties are unemployed, divorced, and facing social ostracism. I'd rebuilt systematically, approaching recovery with the same methodical precision I'd used for revenge. New job at a tech startup that valued my skills without the corporate politics that had cost me my previous position. New social circle of people who didn't know my story or treat me like a victim to be pitied. New routines that didn't revolve around monitoring someone else's deception. Dating again had been surprisingly challenging, not because of trust issues. I'd learned to read warning signs more carefully, but because of who I'd become through the process. The man who'd married Erin had been trusting to the point of naivety. This man was observant, careful, strategic in ways that sometimes surprised potential partners. "You're different than most guys I date," Sarah had said after our third dinner together. "You pay attention to details. You ask follow-up questions. It's like you're solving puzzles in your head." She wasn't wrong. Experience had taught me that people revealed themselves through inconsistencies, through the gaps between words and actions. I'd learned to listen for those gaps, to notice when stories didn't align, to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. Some might call it paranoid. I called it informed. The final piece of my investigation was destroyed on a Tuesday morning in March. 2 years of evidence, photos, documents, tracking records, financial statements, fed into an industrial shredder I'd rented for the day. Not from guilt about my actions, but from a desire to stop living in the shadow of someone else's betrayal. Watching those papers disappear felt like closing a chapter I'd never wanted to write. The man who'd assembled that evidence with such careful precision was still part of me, but he didn't need to be the whole of me. Erin had made her choices. I'd made mine. The consequences had played out exactly as designed, with justice served and innocent parties protected. But justice, I'd learned, was a cold companion compared to the possibility of genuine connection with someone capable of honesty. The question now wasn't whether I could trust again, it was whether I could find someone worth trusting. Someone whose words matched their actions, whose phone wasn't a fortress of secrets, whose affection wasn't rationed based on financial circumstances. Someone who understood that love, without honesty, wasn't love at all. The coffee shop hummed with ordinary conversations. Couples planning weekend trips that were actually weekend trips. People discussing work challenges that were actually about work. Normal interactions between people who'd chosen transparency over deception. I finished my coffee and walked out into the Colorado sunshine, leaving behind the shadows of surveillance and suspicion. The past had been documented, consequences delivered, and justice served. Now it was time to build something better than what I'd destroyed. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.